I can use many words to describe a president that came after Bill. Boring is certainly not one of them. Um, hey everyone. Well, to close out this year, here before I take a brief hiatus, heading into 2025, I want to do this early in the year, but what the heck, it's now or never. So here's a video looking back on 25 years of Batman Beyond. As I was saying, let's get started. The premise of the show, it was set in the then not too distant future, in which it's an aging Bruce Wayne is forced to hang up the mask, which is shown a very dynamic opening, one that stays with you after all this time. I believe I saw it when it first came out, and incidentally, the first episode aired on January 10th, 1989, so in one of those times where the birthday ends up being an episode of TV that airs then, it's definitely one that stays with you, where his heart starts to give out during a fight against a criminal, which forced him to do the one thing he never wanted to. Use a gun against them. He didn't actually fire up any rounds, but it's because of that and his age forces him to hang up the costume, which enables a successor to put it on after the time skip. That being a one Terry McGinnis, that's voiced by Will Friedle, and the fact that I recognize him more from this than I do from Boy Meets World should tell you something what kind of person I am in terms of pop culture. And while I enjoyed it at the time, I definitely knew it would be a tough act to follow of how good Batman the Animated Series was. As the years passed, and I looked at its 52 episode run more and more, where I not only grew to appreciate it more and more over time, but it is definitely worth standing alongside the other entries in the DC Animated Universe, alongside the original Batman, Superman, Justice League, League Unlimited, Static Shock, and even more niche installments of Zeta Project, which actually has backdoor pilot in the show, believe it or not. And as for the whole Batman high school concept, I can attribute that, find out more and more, that was actually they wanted a piece of how Spider-Man was definitely he had a teenage hero that was balancing in his duties as a hero with the day a life of being in high school, which makes sense when you look at a lot of the new members of the Rogues Gallery, with Derek Powers and his son Paxton more or less being stand-ins for Norman Osborn and his son Harry, without any of the sympathetic qualities those characters have, depending on which variant we're talking about here. And all things considered, I look at it from a different angle. Well, one of the orders that they gave was to make the show a means of one of the edicts that Bruce, Paul, and other colleagues as Radomski and Butch Lukic were given, and Kurt Gaeta, were to make it a commercial sell Batman toys. Never had to be a bad commercial sell Batman toys, which is the one loophole they were able to fill quite ably, I would say. Even in many ways, the quality of the writing and unique approach to the visuals and characterization actually make it a lot better than I remember it. And as an anime fan, especially like how it has a lot of similarities to Ghost in the Shell and Akira, to the point where it actually makes a more faithful adaptation of the latter than a lot of pictures we've gotten so far in the West. Especially in the case of Turn the Joker movie, which we'll get to another time. I especially like the flourishes that help the show stand out from its predecessor, which definitely show, again, in the opening I mentioned, how it starts out not too dissimilar from what came before, where one of the crooks is wearing like an old-timey bomber jacket. The bus happens in an airplane hangar, and the police cars almost look like old Studebakers. And then after the time skip, we have the new Gotham City, where the buildings are all massive scapes of steel and fiberglass, where flying cars and two-way video conferencing devices are commonplace. They can definitely verify we have apps for the latter now, and digital currency exchanges are now commonplace, many of which are indeed card-based. And whereas the former, we're working on clearing the red tape on that. I mean, knowing how some influencers are behaving, a lot of people probably getting a wreck while they're TikToking or something. But still, I also like how they actually remixed a lot of ideas from the animated series and also laid the foundation for other parts of DCAU, which we'll touch on a little bit. Especially about the Joker's gang. It makes sense that a lot of the criminals will want to follow in the Columbus of Crime's footsteps. In fact, when they had the whole people dressed like clones in years past, I was this close to getting and putting on a bat suit myself and putting an end to it. I mean, I was this close, personally. But I decided to settle for doing it in the Arkham series instead. And I honestly would not object if they did make the next game, if they did make another one, now that Task Force X goes to Chipotle, is winding down supports. Like, I don't know, like a Batman Beyond Arkham sounds good to me on a personal level. Though the show broadcasted its final episode on February 18th, 2001, December 18th, 2001, it was not the true end for the show. That honor would go to the Justice League Unlimited episode Epilogue, which was initially planned as finale of the entire DCAU before one more season was greenlit. It did end up being the final episode chronologically Batman Beyond and for those who have not seen any of this, I'm going to give you like a time code and description, and so you can skip the spoilers. So here we go. Well, the inciting incident of the original show was what brought Terry in the story was the fact that his father was killed after Powers put a hit out on him. It turns out it was actually much more complicated than that. While there was a bit of resemblance in both looks and personality as a teenager, albeit with his own unique flair of how he did things in terms of both fighting and detective work, once he reached his middle age, it was basically impossible to not notice the similarities. And he actually goes to visit Amanda Waller, which is actually my first exposure to that character as a kid, which, like a lot of things in the show, it exposed a lot of concepts to me in terms of the comic lore and speculative fiction, but through some DNA shenanigans and the fact that Bruce would be repaired on the off chance that he could not build a stable relationship of his own, which he didn't, and biologically speaking, Terry is Bruce's son. Yep, it was very much like that. And even though this does lead to some understandable conflict, he does continue tradition in his own way. So It's been said that it actually makes the best unofficial episode of Beyond, and I'm inclined to agree. Still, all the ideas that the show brought forth when I was watching it alongside Pokemon and Kids WB, in terms of unique interpretations of the comic lore, and speculative fiction, what humanity could one day be, in the future, it fascinated me, and in many ways it still does. I mean, there's been on and off attempts to try and get a new version made, be it animated or live action, and even if the previous attempts didn't exactly pan out, I'm still very much open to the idea of it happening one day. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily mean it would have to be a theatrical film necessarily. I mean, on top of like the video game I mentioned, could you imagine, say, a reversion show in the vein of Cape Crusader or X-Men 97 Heaven for her HBO or Adult Swim? I certainly could. But I am that kind of a person, certainly. And one last thing before I take a brief break, before I first read 2025, is that this show's version of Ace the Bat Hound is another concept I really like. I mean, whether or not Andy's still the one that makes Fear in the Bowl, and how that just got pushed back again, I would very much be open to that film including a version of Ace, like how the Superman's going to be including Crypto Superdog. Yeah. Anyway, that'll be all for now. I will likely be looking at the Turn the Joker movie at some point in the future, and with that in mind, I wish you all the best for 2025, and I will see you all again then. So, take care, everyone.